Welcome to Unleash the Podcast. I am streaming live, and when I stream live, you know what that means. It means that I have a guest. Even better today, I have two guests. I can't wait to introduce them. Before I do, I just want to let all of you know, look, if you're watching this on the live stream, there's a really great way to never miss an episode, and that is to subscribe to Unleashed the Podcast. You can go to unleashedthepodcast.com or just go to your favorite repository for podcasts. We're on Google Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Amazon Music. Go find Unleash the Podcast. Never miss an episode. This episode is going to be fun. I have got two very good friends. They were on my Shrimp Tank podcast with me just about a month ago. Their names, Sue Sanford, Lynn Fulks, Upstart Group. They are here because they're going to talk about something that is incredibly important for business continuity and growth, and that's marketing. Crazy year. We want to make sure that all of you are making money and that your brand is enhanced. And Sue and Lynn, can you help our watchers and our listeners? Can you help us with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. First of all, Sue Sanford, Lynn Fulks, welcome very much to Unleashed the Podcast.
Thank you, Dan. We're excited to be here. It's
Thank
gonna be
you.
fun.
So listen, let's start out with what you do, because on your website, you talk about being a fractional CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, fractional CMO. There's a fractional agency model, and it has nothing to do with doing math, right? This is I don't have to do any math or fractions, but what is a fractional CMO?
Well, maybe some marketing math. However,
Yeah.
one of our favorite CEO coaches, Jim Heaton, tells his CEOs, only do what only you can do. And that means that you as CEO or business owner, you don't have to be expert in finance or marketing or sales or operations. You can use fractional expertise for your company. And by fractional, it means that you probably don't need, depending on your size of company, a full-time CMO or VP of sales or chief operating officer, but you could use one a couple hours a week or a couple hours a month to
So
help
a fraction
grow
of the
and build your
time,
company.
right?
A fraction of the time. So you're using a fraction of that VP sales to drive and build your sales team, a fraction of that chief operating officer to shore up manufacturing, train and lead your ops team. The same for a CMO, a chief marketing officer can come in and for a fraction of the time, train and lead your more junior staff that you probably do need full time.
Well, you know, and before we dive into some specific questions, it brings to mind the small business owner who might have anywhere from 5 to 30 employees. They end up wearing the hats of many because those employees are either you're building something, they're driving somewhere, they're out in front of the store at the counter, and that those jobs, and marketing is one of those, falls on the CEO or the president or whatever we want to call that person. They don't have the marketing skills that you two have or that your teams have, right?
Absolutely. It's one of the things we see, Dan, as a big challenge for growing companies, because there's a certain point, we've hit this in our own company, where there's a certain point where if we don't get that right expertise, we don't get the next level of knowledge we need, then the CEO or the business owner actually becomes the roadblock. And the reason we're not growing, because they can't do all of it. They can't have everything funneling through them. It's just, as we all know, when you're wearing that many hats, things start to fall off. So it's where when we see the fractional model becoming really valuable. In our case, we tried doing our own accounting for way too long. We should not be doing accounting, let me just tell you. But
it's like me saying I want to get up on my roof and clean off the leaves. I shouldn't be doing that.
No,
right?
You should not be doing that ever. No.
So I want to talk a little bit, because sales, and I'm going to throw out questions. You guys can fight over who gets to answer them.
All right, you
Is
got
that a
it.
deal?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Or as I say to my granddaughter, dealio. All right. So sales and marketing gets lumped in together. In fact, you see a lot of sales and marketing on different types of reports or whatever. What is the difference between sales and marketing?
Oh, me.
All right, jump.
Lynn,
I almost got you. All right, go.
So the easy way to think of it is marketing is one-to-many and sales is one-to-one. So marketing's trying to get as many of the right people to the company as possible. And by the time we've started narrowing it down on who the real customers are that really want to buy right now, sales takes them from there and closes those deals. And it's just super important. Sales and marketing should be working together like this in order to get the right people to the right company to close those deals.
So, you just said something that kind of struck me. They're not necessarily the same people. The marketing people and the sales people are different people.
It's not only different people, Dan. From my experience, and we've talked with a lot of sales VPs about this as well. There's the information we need up front. Who our key customers are, what are our core messaging, what are we trying to sell them. All those things tie together. But at a certain point, marketing and sales disciplines are very different. And like Lynn was saying, the salesperson needs to have that knowledge and expertise to go in, have the conversations, do the negotiations, close the sale. That's a different skill set than what you need in the marketing team. And I think one of the biggest challenges we see is sometimes it gets lumped together under somebody who's going to do biz dev. And well, biz dev can mean all kinds of different things. Now, it might be sales, it might be marketing, but in reality, you've got to have both functions or make sure you're clear about how those functions are working together.
So as you're coming together and you're talking with your clients, and you work with both small and medium-sized businesses, correct?
Yes.
So during this 2020 has been huge, off the chart, unprecedented. I think we would all agree to that. And I know that there are probably people you've talked to who said, we're going to cut back on expenses and marketing is part of that. And many have figured, no, we need to make some money during this. What's the most asked question you've been getting since March, since this whole thing started happening? Is there one or two questions that have just been prevalent?
For me, and Lynn, you might have a different experience. For me, a lot of what we're working with clients on is that it's the sales question. It's how do we keep leads coming in? How do we connect with our clients when we've got a sales team who's used to being in front of them? If you're doing face-to-face meetings, you're on the road, you're doing this, it is a different environment to do what we're all doing now, Zoom and other platforms, to be able to have those sales conversations. So a lot of it is, how do we do that? And so we're working with teams on that. The other big piece, like Lynn was mentioning, where it's got to really be integrated, is marketing has a much bigger load right now to make sure that we're helping cut through the noise and that we're helping get the right information out in front of the customers. So when your customer's doing research, and they're going to do 70 to 90% of the research before they ever talk to a salesperson. So if we want our customers to be found, and we're working with our clients, and their information isn't in a place where the customers are searching, or they don't have the right information up, they may or may not even make the top list of vendors that a client's going to talk to. So there's a bigger lift on marketing that's really important. I would say more so than ever. Back to the question though, cutting marketing budgets. I would also say you got to be really focused on how you spend money right now.
Yeah. So the noise, I'm going to do a quick piggyback. So Lynn, maybe you can answer this. There's more noise out there now because it's increased. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. Everyone has taken the notion to heart that it's more important than ever to stay in front of your customers, provide them with education and information that they need, and support their businesses. And so there is a lot of education and other noise out there. And cutting through what's most valuable, that's a challenge that your clients face. So how do you make sure that you're the one that's relevant, that they are paying attention to?
Okay, so now, of course, I always write down these questions and I get sidetracked by everybody's good answers. And so I got sidetracked again. So I think I would agree definitely that there's more noise, so to speak, because everybody's working virtually and so they're able to produce. So here we are on a podcast that's part of what you would consider building an intellectual property base and doing all of that. Everybody's doing podcasts. Regardless of whether it's a podcast, a blog, a website, social media, how do people differentiate? How do companies differentiate themselves so that they can be heard above the noise or seen through the fog, or however we want to characterize that?
Well, there's so many answers to that, Dan. That's why you see both Lynn and I pausing here. So it's like, okay, which track do you take? One of the critical pieces is making sure you really understand what your customers are looking for. We see a lot of companies still upside down with all about me messaging. And that's, the customers are trying to solve their own problem, whatever that is. And sometimes they're solving different problems looking for the same product. So cutting through that noise and getting in front of that and differentiating, it is more to do with your customers than it is with anything you sell.
And the other piece of that is, how do your customers want to get information from you and get the education? Do they prefer video? Do they prefer to read a blog? Or are they just solely on social, and want to see a quick social post that they can link through if they want? So really understanding how your customers want to hear from you.
Okay. So I asked you, the question I asked a little bit before was, what's the most asked question you're getting? My next question for both of you is, what's the question more CEOs should be asking?
Oh, yeah. That's an easy one.
Yeah, no, okay, who goes first? Wait a minute, I think I got that one. Okay, you go first.
We're in Q4. And we've had a lot of companies come to us and say, okay, well, this thing isn't going away anytime soon. It's not changing anytime soon. How do I prepare and plan for 2021? Because my CEO coach is saying, where's your 2021 business plan? Well, I can't use what I had planned for 2020 because it's not going to work, right? I got to start.
It went out the door in May, or if not before, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're getting a lot of calls on help me plan for 2021.
Sue, do you have something to add to that one?
I do. I think for the getting ready is a big piece, but I also think for business owners, it's really staying streamlined. Like we mentioned, everybody's wearing different hats, and the propensity is to try to solve too many things at once. And when we're looking at stabilizing a company, Dan, you talk a lot about this in terms of managing risk and making sure that your company is set up for what happens if it continues for a long time. Same thing in marketing. It's like really stay focused and don't forget your existing customers. That's one of the biggest gaps when you're thinking about planning. What are you doing to talk to your customers that you have now? You might think, oh, my customers love me. I don't need to do anything about that. But if you're not talking to them and other people are, and you're not keeping them in front of your mind and making sure you're adding value, there is real business risk there. So don't forget to look in and talk to your existing customers.
What would you say about, social media? Obviously, the platforms are important, whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Yelp for a lot of hospitality and restaurants and things like that. What would you say from a standpoint of, do you shotgun all of that that out there to everybody, or do you become very specific and laser focused on just a few? And everybody might have a different answer for their company, but in general, what would you say?
No spray and pray.
Spray.
No spray and pray. Absolutely not. Lynn, you go.
Yeah, so I always say, look, we're, especially small and medium business, we're not Coca-Cola. We don't have a budget to market to everybody across the world. We need to be really targeted and specific. Who do we want to talk to? Where are they? How are they shopping for us? And we're going to go and do that.
So what's the biggest?
Can I add one thing to that?
Sure.
The other thing with the social is test it. We have a client, is a manufacturing client, and they so LinkedIn obviously becomes a natural place to go. But what we found for one subset of their buyers is they were a lot more proactive and engaging on Facebook. So part of it, you got to test and find out, where do you get conversations, where are people converting from? And if social's not working, doesn't mean you should kill it. It does mean you should figure out what is working and how to get to your customers. Okay.
Great, thank you. I was going to ask, what's the biggest mistake CEOs or CMOs, regardless of, I guess, whatever their role is in the organization, what's the biggest mistake you see them making now?
Well, for the CEOs, back in March, April, May, it was cutting marketing budget completely.
Yeah.
Because in that case, you're not, as Sue mentioned, keeping contact with your best customers that you have right now, but you're also putting all that burden on finding new customers completely on your sales force.
Yeah.
So they're not then closing deals. They're out trying to find just people to talk to. So that's a huge burden on that team.
Yeah.
So I think,
oh, go ahead, Sue.
No, I just want to add it. I think the other thing, and it ties back to the planning, is sometimes as marketing teams or marketing individuals, we get really focused on the tactics. We're just getting it done. And there are times where you really have to step back and say, is it working? Is it really getting us where we want to go? Is it helping us break through the noise and do some of the things that are required to support our sales? So I think that's important on the marketing side.
I was reading some of the things that I've on articles and things you put out. You talk about the bird in the hand and bird poop, right? Now you didn't use bird poop, you used bird droppings, but you talked about the bird in the hand. Yeah, and all you have is a handful of bird droppings. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I love that phrase. It goes back to the talking to your customers, right?
Yeah.
The customer you have, a lot of times people want to go out. We're going to open a new market. We're going to go out and find new customers in a whole new area. The missing piece is you might have more revenue sitting in your existing customer base and they're less expensive to get because they already know you and they're easier to sell to. And people forget about that. So it's not only just don't forget to talk to your customers, but also look at what can you be doing to increase your engagement in the customer base you have. So I think that's the bird in the hand, forget about those customers and you got droppings, right?
Yeah. Lynn, or did you have something to add or did
No,
okay.
Sue covered it.
Okay, so I've got kind of a fun one. I promise you don't have to reveal anything about whom you're going to vote for or anything, but here's the presidential campaign has been going on for about 2 years, correct? I mean, we're coming to an inglorious end to the whole thing.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
But in reality, you know what these campaigns are? It dawned on me, and it's gone back through time. These are marketing campaigns. I mean, they're really, we hear about, the presidential campaign. These are marketing campaigns where individual brands, whether you had 17 people running for one, and trying to get down to one, it was kind of that large funnel coming down to a final sale. I want to hear from both of you. What are some lessons learned, best and worst, that businesses can take away from both presidential campaigns over the last year? What are some of the things that they should learn from, and what are some of the things they should avoid at all costs?
So you go first, Lynn.
Yeah, so I will say that negative advertising and focusing on the other person is not going to endear you to your current customers, but B, is going to damage any hope you ever had of getting the other company's customers.
Yeah. Yep. So that's a no-no. Don't focus on that. Sue?
Fear mongering.
Okay.
Yeah. It's fear marketing is a very real tactic, and in some cases it works well. But you got to use it really wisely, because what are the side effects to that? Who else you're going to impact? And just being thoughtful about who you want to be in the world, right?
And I liked what you said. I don't remember if it was Sue or Lynn who said it, but you were talking about in the discussion of rising above the noise or being seen, to focus not on me, but to focus on what your customers, what your clients, where they're hurting, what they need, to focus on that as opposed to here's what I can do. What help do you need, right? Is that there's an ability to do that.
Yes.
Yeah. It's solutions focused. If you think about it, if you're shopping, you're not shopping because you're looking at what that company can do. You're shopping to solve a particular problem. Let's go back to your roof thing, and you don't want to get on the roof and you need a leaf guard. Well, you're going to go research that. You're going to look for it and you're going to figure it out. And the very last piece, maybe, who do I buy it from? Yeah. So you're solving a problem. You got to make sure we're getting that information and solving, the real problems customers have.
And are you going to go buy it from the company that spends all their marketing dollars bashing the competition?
Right.
Or Or are you going to buy it from the company that says, hey, I understand you don't want to go walk on the roof. Let us come take that burden off of you and you'll be safe.
So one thing, and I see now something just popped into my head. There's also, there's also a thing around sense of urgency. Now I know the fear mongering part is no bueno, but there are some things that their sense of urgency gets people to move. You know, logic makes people think, emotion makes people act. And there is often very much a sense of urgency that if you don't do this, this bad thing can happen. Do you categorize that as fear mongering, or is it, I'm looking out for your best interest, do this in order to better yourself or protect yourself?
To me, that falls more in education.
Okay.
This is a very real business risk. This is something that has to be addressed. And sometimes business owners, you know, you see this a lot with cybersecurity right now.
Right.
And what is the real risk we're facing, and not just jumping to go buy a new policy because everybody's doing it, but what's the real risk to my business? So
education. I like that.
I think it's education.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got one last question. You both get to ask it before, or you both get to answer it before we move on. And it's about 2021. So yeah. So you can take a deep breath. I'm not going to ask you to compare yourself to anybody on Friends or on any other show that we did that on Shrimp Tank. This is reaching out, so the people listening or watching are thinking, okay, we're in Q4 now, or 2021. I guess we need to start planning for that. Innovation is critical, and we've all had to turn on a dime, pivot on a dime, haven't we? I mean, just right now, what is something new from a marketing strategy perspective that may not have started at all in 2020, but should be considered in 2021 for a lot of companies?
I think what comes to mind, Lynn, for me is broader use of video. And the ability for smaller companies to really be effective with video, and not having it be, you don't have to go out and do a fully, professionally produced video production, although sometimes you're going to want that. But I think the video engagement continues to be really important, and more so than it's ever been in terms of engaging with customers.
Like what we're doing right now.
Yeah,
exactly.
For those of you watching right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one other thing that companies should consider is that this has broadened some companies' eyes where they thought they could only have clients in a certain geographical area. All of a sudden they're like, oh, I've got the whole United States, and maybe Canada and Mexico, and maybe even further could be customers for us. So that's an opportunity in 2021 that they would not have taken advantage of at the beginning of 2020.
Yeah, and
I think that's sorry, Dan. But I just want to make a point there.
I'll say this, and then I want to turn it to you.
Yeah,
it's about success, not perfection, isn't it? When it comes to video, and I mean, you want it to be good, but it's about getting it out there, right? And Sue, please, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Please continue.
No, I was just going to add on the thought, because with what Lynn was talking about, it's not just marketing; it's also sales. I just read an article from, I think it was McKinsey put out a report on sales, and looking at. It's changing the sales landscape probably permanently, and realizing, hey, we can sell virtually and be successful at that. It's less expensive in some ways. It's easier, and I think that's changing the landscape on the sales side as well.
Well, the interesting thing, and I'll leave you to
sorry,
comment.
you said we could jump in, Dan. So
this is fun. This is what we're supposed to, this conversation. But this is my point. I have clients that pre-COVID, we would talk on the phone a lot, but that was it. Today, we never talk on the phone anymore, but we're doing this. I actually see many clients more than I did before COVID because of Zoom or whatever platform we're using. It's interesting that I had a conversation with somebody in North Carolina. I might as well have been sitting right across the desk from them, because that's what I was doing. So, I think that's great. So listen, I know that people are saying, I have to meet Sue and Lynn. I got to talk to them. We got to get 2021 rolling. How do people find both of you?
The easiest way is to go to our website, upstartgroup.com, all one word, upstartgroup.com, and you can find information on how to contact us, and also hopefully some content and tools there that you can use to download or use in your own strategic planning process. So thanks for including that.
Well, to both of you, thank you very much for joining me today. I know that all of our listeners and watchers took a lot away from it. I wish both of you a great fourth quarter of 2020 and an even better 2021. I know we'll continue talking, and maybe we'll even have you back on again if you're willing.
It's always fun, Dan. This has been great.
Yes, thank you for having us.
So everybody out there, listen, I told you at the beginning, the best way never to miss another episode is to go to Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, whatever you like. We'll be having more guests coming up, and I'll even wax poetic on a few things myself. For right now, please go out there, be safe, be healthy, and above all, be unleashed.